Hello and a very warm welcome to Cultural Communication Confidence with me, Victoria Reynoldson. And a very warm welcome to episode 19, where we'll be talking about effective professional emails. Now, emails. I know this is a topic that some people love and some people hate. There are some people who say to me, what's the point? We use lots of messenger tools these days, whether that is Teams or Google or project team tools like Slack or Trello. And some people say to me that they increasingly just don't use emails anymore. However, there is always a time when we need to write emails, whether that is we move to a company, organization, or team that are more focused on writing emails, or perhaps it's even for job applications or for particular types of situation and with certain groups of people. So let me ask you, how are your emails doing today? Do you know how to really cut through when it really matters? How are you making sure that your emails are opened, that the person or people are really paying attention to your topics and responding and taking action when you need them to? This is the key topic for today. And I'm going to be sharing with you some of my key criteria that I use with my clients to help them think about and approach the planning for emails when it really matters so that they can make sure that they are effective and professional. So let's start with the first one, which is, why this email? Simple question, but really there are sort of two parts to this. The first one is, why are you writing this email? What is the purpose or reason for you to write it? Is it just for information, or are you updating somebody, or are you looking to get support, or even for somebody to take an action as a result of you sending this email? So get very clear on what your reason is. And then really think about, before you jump into writing the email, the second part of that question is, why email at all? Is email the right tool for this? I find that there are some organizational company cultures where you find that people like to write a lot of emails. And it's just a way for people to get things done quickly, to get things off their to-do list and tick them off. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right tool. So really challenge yourself here. And I think a good tip here is that if you start writing an email and you find yourself writing and it ends up being quite long with multiple topics, then this probably isn't an email. This is probably a communication that would be better done via a meeting, even a quick meeting. And remember, meetings don't have to be asynchronous, i.e. getting everybody round the table at the same time. You can get meetings where you send each other voice messages or video messages and that you can share information quickly. So do challenge yourself here. So that first criteria is, why this email? So really checking in with your reason for writing the email and then checking that email is the right tool. So moving on to the next point is, how well do you know them? Now this is really about your relationship. Now if you are writing an email internally to the team that you work with, then actually this is quite helpful because you can think about the relationships you've got. You can think about the how they feel about the topic you're writing about, whether they're warm to it or perhaps they have some concerns. And also you can perhaps even anticipate some of the questions that might come up. And now that can be really useful because if you know they're going to ask those questions, then you can build those answers into the email you're writing. So those answers are there before they even ask the question. So clearly, if you know the other people or person well, then you have high relationship currency, and that makes it easier for you to then tailor the email to make it work. if you don't know the other person or people well, then this is a little bit more challenging. I suppose it comes down to how important is this email. If it's a really important email to senior management or to, let's say, in a situation that you're applying for a job, then it might be worth your while doing a bit of research, talking to people who do know the individuals and can give you some insight into what motivates them and what questions they might have. So that's the second point. How well do you know them, the people that you're writing to? The third point is, what action do you need? Now, we are all incredibly busy, and I'm sure yourself that you open up emails, quickly scan them, and work out very fast whether they are important or not. You may not open up all your emails. And in fact, there is a statistic that says that the average person will receive 121 business emails a day. Now, whether you receive many more than that or perhaps fewer, it doesn't matter. The point is, we all receive a lot of email. So we need to have a system where we can filter really quickly what's important, what's not. So coming back to this point, what action do you need? If you really need the other person or people who receive this email to do something in response to your email, make it clear. Think about how you could even flag that in the subject line so that the person knows, okay, I need to open this because there's an action for me to do, and include the deadline. So tell them, when they need to respond by. And certainly in the main body of the email, make it clear through formatting tools, bold, underline, whatever is your style, make sure it's clear. The only one I would avoid, of course, is capital letters, which is a really not a great way to grab attention in email. And in fact, it comes across as shouting. So don't use that one particularly. However, also think about, where does your action come in the email? Many people tend to put the information up front and then the action right at the bottom. I would argue that if this is an important email, an important action, then you really want to bring your action further up. So it's in the early stages and the person can already be thinking about what's required of them as they read through. So that's point 3. What action do you need? Point 4, think about some brief small talk at the start and at the end. Now you're probably thinking, what's this about? Small talk in emails? Well, it does belong there, particularly if you want to build up that relationship currency I talked about. And what I mean by this is something very, very simple. So at the beginning of an email, you could open up with saying, hello, Victoria, hope you're well. Hope you had a nice weekend. Hope your project's going well. Something like this. And at the end of the email, the small talk could be as simple as, for example, look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to seeing you at the next meeting. Hope to hear from you soon. So these kinds of phrases are really useful as ways to open and close your email. They don't take long, but the idea of them is to show genuine interest in the other person, to show that you're trying to make that connection and that relationship work. And if you're interested in this idea of small talk, then don't forget to listen to last week's episode, which was episode 18, where we were talking about small talk in verbal communication. And I'll put a link in the show notes below. Moving on to topic number 5 is making sure you have a clear flag of your message. So now that you have opened up your emails and you've got the small talk in there, get to the point quickly. And make the message clear, make the action clear, and keep your emails simple. I think it's incredibly important when we're working in multicultural teams across borders that we really keep our emails short and simple and to the point so everybody has a common view. Now, there are some cultures that prefer to write long emails and summarize and write about the details. But I would argue that if you find yourself writing a long email, go back to point 1, which is why email? Is email the right tool? And could you be potentially thinking about an alternative way of communicating? And then the final point for today is talking about your CC strategy or copying in strategy. Now, again, this might be a little bit dependent on your organizational culture. I do know that there are some companies that have particular approaches, which mean people tend to copy in senior managers or the full team on certain types of communication. However, just be a little bit aware that if you are sending more than just an information email and you're looking for response or actions to be taken, it can sometimes be challenging when there is a long list of people CC'd or copied in. What I find is that there are two things that might happen. The first one is that everybody responds individually and copies in everybody else, replies all. And of course, that can end up with adding to our problem of 121 emails a day on average. So it ends up with just a lot of conversation, which is happening on email. And if this happens, again, we need to challenge ourselves. Is email really the right tool for this? Or we'd better off having a meeting just to discuss and then agree? And then the second thing that sometimes happens if we CC in a long list of people is that nobody responds. So because there's a long list of people there, nobody is really sure who should respond first, who should take ownership, and who should take the action. So that can also cause a problem and make you realize that you may, again, need a meeting rather than writing an email. My final word on this is the idea of BCC, or blind copying people. Now, my view on this and my recommendation is that you do not use this. Again, I know that in some organizations and companies, this is a common way to keep in the loop a senior manager or somebody who isn't part of the project team but needs to know what's going on. But this can be a little bit dangerous, and I would really be cautious with including people on BCC. The reason for this is actually it creates a mistrust. And what happens is that the person who is being blind copied actually could be updated in a different way. They could be told verbally, face-to-face, or on a call. And if the other people find out that somebody else is being blind copied, BCC'd, then that creates a mistrust. It creates an atmosphere where people don't feel safe to communicate in the way they want to, because perhaps senior managers are being included in the conversation without their realization. So just be very cautious of taking this route and consider maybe the alternatives. So there you go. As we come to the end of today's episode, how are you doing against these particular criteria? Are you using any of these types of questions and planning tools today that I use with my own clients and myself, in fact, to help write effective professional emails? Which of these actually are really useful for you, and which ones perhaps you might take forward and try out in your emails going forward? I would love to know. So please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. My personal profile is Victoria Reynoldson, and I'd love to know what you thought about these and which ones are particularly useful for you. And if email communication, email writing, and professional writing in general is a challenge for you or your team, then please feel free to come and have a chat with me about my communication program, 9 Steps to Communication Confidence. And I can share with you how I support my clients to really develop their professional writing skills. In the meantime, as we come to the end of this particular episode, if you have found this useful and valuable, and you think this would be helpful to somebody else in your team, a co-worker or a colleague, then I would absolutely love it if you could share this with them. I really want to make sure these episodes go out as widely as possible around the world, and that I want to share this value with for everybody's benefit. So please feel free to forward this particular episode on. And if you've particularly found it useful and really enjoying the podcast so far, then I would really really appreciate it if you would like to subscribe to the show. That means you get an automatic update when the next episode goes live. And also, I would love it if you could rate and review, particularly if you're on Apple. That would be amazing. So thank you so much for joining me today on Cultural Communication Confidence, and I look forward to seeing you next time.